All spoiler recap. 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 All spoiler recap.
Welcome back to the All Spoiler Recap podcast. I'm Julia Cunningham, and over the course of an hour plus, we go through a movie beat by beat. And I wanted to bring in a special guest for this particular episode because we're going to be celebrating a massive 5th anniversary of a movie that I only saw once in theaters, but I think about it at least 7 times a day since it was released back in December of 2019. And we'll get to it in just a moment. I want to welcome my guest, Elizabeth Rosa from, are you ready for this, All Spoiler Recap listeners? New Zealand! International guest! Oh my God, Elizabeth, welcome!
Hi, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Are you kidding me? This is the most thrilling thing ever. I got this email from Elizabeth that was like, hey, listen to the podcast. By the way, I'm from New Zealand. You have a listen. I was like, what? Lost my mind. First of all, how did you even hear about the All Spoiler Recap podcast?
I was actually thinking about this the other day. I think I actually found it in a Reddit thread somewhere. I was looking for single host podcasts, which this is. And for some reason it came up, and then I was like, oh, I'll try go back and re-find the thread. Can't find it. So I think in some like weird Reddit rabbit hole.
You know what? I love that. The power of Reddit. I'm on there all the time in deep dives looking up like totally random things. So I love that that's how you randomly discovered us. And I'm so excited that you're joining us. Also, Elizabeth is an artist. So go make sure I'm going to tag her while we post this episode. But do you want to just give a shout out to your handles really quick so that people can go see your art?
Yeah. So I'm Elizabeth Rosa Art on Instagram and Facebook and all those things. Actually, also a website, elizabethrosaart.com, mostly on Instagram.
Go check it out. Very thrilling and exciting that we have her as part of the podcast. And I want to say this is, a movie that was, originally done on the West End in the 80s. It was based on a collection of poetry from T.S. Eliot in the 30s, nearly the 40s. And it's a movie directed by Tom Hooper, who won an Academy Award for The King's Speech. He directed Les Mis. He's got the pedigree, and yet somehow we received a film that is so bad and so magical and makes nearly no sense. It's borderline perfect. It's a movie called Cats. It was released in December of 2019. That means it is celebrating its 5th anniversary this week, and I thought we need to celebrate it. We need to have a true, beautiful moment on the All Spoiler Recap, and Elizabeth from New Zealand is joining me for the podcast. Now, have you had any familiarity with Cats, the musical, with the pop culture surrounding this kind of, quote, bomb, end quote, of a film? Anything comes to mind with Cats?
The only thing, so I've never seen it. I don't know anything about the storyline. The only thing I know is that Taylor Swift is in it because I'm a huge fan, but still never watched it. And also there was some controversy around, I don't know if I can say it on the podcast, something about buttholes being removed.
Thank you. I'm so glad because I was going to say that one of the major takeaways in like the sort of disastrousness of whatever this movie is, there was a whole conversation about whether or not there's a butthole cut of the movie that exists. This screenwriter named Jack Waz, which in a now deleted tweet, site formerly known as Twitter, claimed that a visual effect artist that he knew had been tapped to work on Cats in November of that year to remove CGI buttholes that had been inserted allegedly a few months before, which means somewhere out there was a cut of the movie Cats with buttholes. And that is like, first of all, totally insane. But then, Seth Rogen jumped in on the thread being, hashtag release the butthole cut. Ryan Johnson, who also was up in it being like, give us the butthole cut. There was a deep dive from various publications. I would say more so Vanity Fair tackled it. They were doing daily updates on the various people that they were reaching out to, publishing who was giving no comment. They did a whole story trying to track down 24 hours tracking down the butthole cut. There ended up being someone who went anonymously on the record with the Daily Beast who said it wasn't that they had added buttholes. It was that when they were watching cuts of the film, there was unintentional butthole fur placement in one of the edits that made it seem like people on the internet would say, oh my God, there's buttholes. So there was like confirmation to non-confirmation, because that's one of the things that's just like, insane about this particular movie is that you make many decisions with a movie, and for some reason, every decision they made was the wrong decision in making this movie. And so one thing that I like can't get past is that, in the Broadway musical, which you often see, humans in leotards with sort of like cat-like qualities, they kept elements of that, but then smoothed out body parts, especially of men. So there's no like penis on cats, and yet they left like women's breast and their feet. And so they didn't CGI them to look like paws. So I could see how the tail, which kind of comes from the tailbone, if they were in some sort of like on all fours position, the shadowing maybe would have looked like a butthole in certain angles. I'm not 100% sure what happened there. Either way, it just adds to the lore of literally a perfect film. So yes, came out in 2019. Taylor Swift, as you mentioned, does make an appearance in the movie. She did an extensive interview with Variety describing how she attended, quote, cat school, in which she, and this is a direct quote, we would literally do hours on end of barefoot crawling on the floor, hissing at each other. We learned about cat instincts and the way they carry themselves and the way that they process information, the way they see the world, the way they move.
They should release that cut.
I want the cut of Taylor Swift like hissing at Idris Elba. It makes no sense. The movie sits at a surprising 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. The surprising part being 53% as an audience score, which means a small amount of people, half the globe, I want to say, love cats. Maybe I'm included. So the trailer for the movie, you might remember, it came out obviously before the movie was released. It was a summer trailer that came out. And it's worth noting that it was the same day Top Gun Maverick, which is a movie that ended up not coming out until 2023, 2022, whatever year it was, this massive blockbuster. It was originally set to come out in the summer of 2020 because of the pandemic. They ultimately waited and waited and waited, saying it needed to be a theater release, which they took that gamble, and obviously they did it correctly. The trailer comes out. It's trending on social media. This is the biggest trailer. This movie looks incredible. We're so excited for Top Gun Maverick. An hour later, they dropped the Cats trailer, and it blew it out of the water in a different way because it looks so bad. Before we jump in, and we're going to start recapping this movie, I'm going to give you a quote from Spy Kids 2, and I want you to think about it. Steve Buscemi's character in Spy Kids 2 says, "Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created here on earth?" I want you to sit with that quote as we dive in, Elizabeth, on a beautiful movie called Cats, okay?
Yeah.
The movie begins with a CGI'd, oversized moon nestled into a giant pile of clouds. And the light from the moon is pushing this blue light across the clouds through a series of what looks like clouds forming the face of a cat, like the bat signal, but cat eyes with the nose and the mouth. And I always watch the movies with subtitles just to make sure I'm not missing anything or an accent or whatever. And it says thrilling music as we start making our way, and we pan from the clouds instantly to the streets of London, and we see the skyline of the Russell Hotel and the Egyptian and the rising sun, and we get our city streets, and we see this old-timey green car that comes out onto a brick road, and it's directly facing us with the light so bright that we're almost blinded by the light that takes up the entire screen. It's the kind of feeling like when people saw film for the first time and it was a train moving towards them and you think you're going to get hit. That's like how intense they give us a spotlight of light across our screen. And the car engine revs as we see, moving in the shadows, a series of the titular cats making their way in the shadows. Now, of course, in the Broadway musical, it's humans as cats. And this version's, yes, it is humans as cats, and yet it's a mixture of CGI and human shape. So we can see their hands, we see their feet. There aren't CGI to paws. It's almost like leotard bodies with fur CGI'd on them. You get a full face, so you can see like Taylor Swift. That's obviously Taylor Swift. That's obviously Idris Elba. But they CGI on whiskers, and they give them the full human body. So it's like in a way weird that you're seeing human butts instead of cat butts. Like our bodies are obviously very different. And the tails, instead of kind of coming out of the shape of a cat, come out of the tailbone. So they obviously, they're freaks. They're the type of thing that you would see at the end of Immaculate that Sydney Sweeney just gave birth to and murders, because she's like, this is a spawn of the devil, these cats.
I'm disturbed.
They're a little disturbing. And also because, we'll get to it, but the proportions of everything on screen makes no sense to the side. Like, cats fit into life because they're proportionate to the things around us. These cats make no sense in proportion to what we see, but we'll get to that.
So they are human-sized cats.
But like, are they human-sized cats? Because everything, even in this scene, like the car is so oversized and big, it would almost be as if they just shrunk down humans, even though the humans are in full size. So when they're in their hands and knees, the length of their torsos are so much longer than a cat that they don't look in proportion to anything around them, because everything is comically oversized. So, like, you know, at one point they climb like across an oven, and it's like, why are the burners 70 times larger than the body of a human of this alleged cat, if that makes sense? Like, the proportions don't quite make sense. So we see this car drive down a street, a busy London street. I mean, empty, but, you know, it would be like the hustle and bustle of a major city. And in the middle of it is this junkyard. And again, thrilling music continues as we see various cats jumping from windowsills and climbing fences to see this car approaching. And this woman emerges out of the fancy green car holding a pillowcase that's squirming. And we start seeing and meeting one of our main cats named Monkastrap, whatever that means. And it's actually, and a lot of, I will say, kudos to them, a lot of actual ballet dancers, singers from Broadway, singers from the West End that are, you know, various cats within this project, including Monkastrap, who is Robbie Fairchild, a dancer, actor, ballet star. And this faceless woman throws this pillowcase like a baseball, by the way, borderline overhand throw, like literally skyrocketing. Obviously a cat in that pillowcase goes across the, like, you know, the sky in a series of bounces. So literally this pillowcase with a cat inside of it bounces off of an old stove. Boom, hits an old stove, falls onto a dirty old mattress that's laid out on this junkyard floor, and then flops over to Brick Road. That cat's neck would be broken. It would be absolutely dead, this cat, the way that she throws it. And the car just takes off into the night as various cats make their way towards this possibly dead cat. And they circle around the pillowcase. Somehow it's moving. And of course, it's humans acting as cats, hissing at the pillowcase. And inside is this beautiful white cat, Victoria the white cat. The actress Francesca Hayward, who's a ballet dancer, actor, definitely an it girl in the UK, was featured like when Meghan Markle did her version of Vogue in the UK. She was on the cover. Like, she's definitely an it one. Francesca Hayward, Victoria the white cat. So now again, this is the first time we're also getting our full visual of the cats. We're getting enough street light that we can see the human faces and the human body, including breast on women. And the proportions are all long and every is slightly oversized. And the camera pulls back to show Victoria the white cat standing alone in the middle of the junkyard as the cats scatter. And the car continues to drive away through an opening that barely allows a cat to even make its way through. The fact that this woman was somehow able to get in there and throw a cat like a baseball. And we start getting one of our first songs from the musical, the overture prologue, Jellicle songs for Jellicle cats. And all the cats start chanting, Jellicles can and Jellicles do, Jellicle songs for Jellicle cats. And there are all these unhinged songs that play, of course, throughout the entire film. And the cats circle her while singing, Jellicles can and Jellicles do. And they climb the cars and they're putting on various hats, literally human-like clothing. And they're making their way around the junkyard and they're doing elaborate choreographed ballet dances as cats. Again, their bodies don't make any sense. The tail is coming from the tailbone. They have human butts, so you're seeing full human butt cheeks. It doesn't make any sense. And as the cats sort of wrap up their incredible Jellicle Cat song, that allegedly explains what a Jellicle Cat is, although can't really put a pin in it. Apparently, Jellicle Cat is just sort of a saying of like little delicate cat, like said quickly, just sort of like, oh, a delicate cat, a Jellicle Cat. But as they're describing this Jellicle Cat as if it's, you know, the pristine thing, they look up. They're all hanging out on this statue singing Jellicle Cats can and Jellicle Cats do. And we see this giant oversized neon sign that says Moriarty on it. And this image of a figure that can only be described as the Babadook. And below it, cursive that is so tight that it looks like Romilly Pictures Presents, when all of a sudden, a tiny cat, to the human eye, jumps on top of the sign. And it's wearing a fur coat. This cat that lives in fur is wearing the body of another cat, perhaps, a giant fur coat. And as the cat lands on the top of the sign, a giant billboard, the sign immediately changes to McCavity in bold font with a picture of Idris Elba in the form of a green-eyed cat done in the style of like a Warhol, but on wood paneling. And below in neon signs, it says, wanted for everything. And Idris Elba, we learned exactly, is our sort of like villain black cat. And he's wearing a fur, and he's got a fedora on with his ears popping through the fedora, and he's got the whiskers and the green eyes. And Idris Elba cat is watching below, seeing Victoria the white cat, like sort of like, ooh, new blood running around with the old mangy cats. And they're all singing, and they're singing this song that is like the mystical divinity of unshamed felinity. Round the cathedral rang, vivat, life to the everlasting cat, feline, fearless, faithful, and true. Do others who do what? Jellicles do, and Jellicles can. So they're continuously singing their beautiful Jellicle song. And even Idris Elba cat is looking down like, what? What are they even saying? And as the number picks up, the cats are all dancing wildly on the street below. No humans have come through. There's randomly 2 cats that have sneakers on. Like some of the cats have shoes, some of them don't. And of course, they're going on. Practical cats and dramatical cats and pragmatical cats and fanatical cats and allegorical cats and metaphorical cats. Jellicle cats can and Jellicle cats do. And all of a sudden, they scatter. Idris Elba cat has approached the scene, and they know he's a bad cat. So everyone knows to scatter and run. But standing there is Victoria the white cat. Going to the ball? I wouldn't if I were you, he tells her. It can be dangerous. You have to be careful because that Idris Elba cat, they're saying he will win. And she's like, who's that? It's like, read the room, girl. Obviously, he's the villain. And there's a giant billboard the size of a building that says he's wanted for everything. Who's that? He disappears as a tuxedo cat, a black and white cat, wearing a top hat, grabs Victoria. Idris Elba cat disappears, and literally like in a poof of smoke, because we start to learn over the course of the movie that Idris Elba cat isn't just any cat, he's a magical cat, okay? He can pull people and pluck them out of thin air. He himself can disappear on a whim. And this random magical cat begins to pull her inside when other female cats start hissing at her. Women cats hating women cats, okay?
Not cool.
Not cool at all. And of course, the magical cat is like, well, she's hot as hell. We're bringing that cool white cat into the place. I don't care what these hissing cats are doing. And then they're finally like, so what's your name? And she says, I'm Victoria, Victoria the white cat. And they're like, but what's your second name? Hissing at her. Munkastrap comes up and is like, well, the naming of cats is a difficult matter. And you're like, is it? What are you talking about? And he says, you may think at first I'm as mad as a hatter when I tell you a cat must have 3 different names. First of all, there's the name that the family uses daily, like Peter. Like the cats are like Peter. The cats are all chiming in. And the cats begin to gather as Munkastrap continues saying, but I tell you, a cat needs a name that's particular, a name that's peculiar and more dignified. Else how can he keep up his tail perpendicular or spread out his whiskers or cherish his pride? And then he starts to weirdly dance sexually towards Victoria, and he sings, but above and beyond, there's one name left over, and that is the name that you will never guess, the name that no human research can discover, but the cat himself knows and will never confess. When you notice a cat in profound meditation, the reason I tell you is always the same. His mind is engaged and wrapped in contemplation of the thought of the thought of the thought of his name. And he's turning her and he's guiding her arm towards her, like as if he's helping her swing a golf club. Very much like low-grade assault. No one is asking for you to help her swing a golf club. Meanwhile, they're all going like, name, 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 almost down to a whisper. Name, name, name. And she touches her cat face as they begin to do this emotional interpretive dance. And of course, we get her full body silhouette, and it makes me uncomfortable that we're sexualizing these cats already so early into the film. And I'm also like, are those 3 names that we brought up, the human name, and then the dignified name, and then the name that you only know internally that you can't express outwardly? Is that what we're dealing with? What are you talking about? What is this? And in this total emotional moment, the magic cat jumps forward, and he's like, I'm Mr. Mistopheles. He's the magical cat. He's got a little sport coat on where all the piping has these beautiful like pearl buttons, and he's got a hat on, and he's a tuxedo cat, and it's the dancer actor Laurie Davidson, and he's singing in his weird top hat and suit coat, and he's singing all about the Jellicle Ball. He's like, here's the thing. The Jellicle Ball is coming. And again, at this point, they're back in the junkyard, and he slides down a tombstone, which doesn't even make sense, because if a cat was sitting in front of a tombstone, it would take up like a quarter of the tombstone. He takes up like an eighth. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And he slides down it like a goddamn slide. And he says, we all meet up at the ball once a year for the Jellicle choice. Old Deuteronomy, this old-ass cat, makes some sort of decision about which cat can be reborn and come to a different Jellicle life. The one chosen will get to go to the Heaviside layer, some sort of heaven, cat heaven. And then they all start chanting, who will it be? Who will it be? Who will it be? They're all singing to her. And even though he just said all of that to Victoria, the cat, she's like, what? What are you talking about? What do you mean? And then Munkastrap is like, let me mansplain it again. Okay, was one cat explaining it not enough? Here I come. He's like, all right, it's far up in the sky from where the most deserving cat will be reborn into another life so they can be who they've always dreamed of being. And she's like, uh-huh. And she's like, but how will they be chosen? And he says they have to sing the song of themselves from deep inside. Of course. Of course? Like, what are you talking about? They have to show who they are, what they do, and what they want to be. And it does make me think, it's like, so are these cats like offering up to suicide to get to a next life in their 9 lives?
Yeah.
Is sort of how it sounds, and go to like, quote, heaven.
Yeah, that doesn't sound that good.
Yeah, to be determined. We'll get there. So he tells Victoria to follow him to see what he means. And he says, we need cats to be ready to be their jellicle cats. And he takes her to a home. And we look inside and we see this cat named Jenny Andy Dots. That's the full name. It's played by Rebel Wilson. Rebel Wilson cat, who is this like big orange tabby who's lounging in a chair. Again, not in any accurate proportions of human or cat sitting in a chair. Like, why? And Rebel Wilson cat is like rolling around and does this like version of a downward dog and like falls off the chair onto the ottoman and then rolls off of the ottoman onto the ground. And he describes her in this song as a Gumby cat because she's lazy, is basically what he's trying to say. He's like, she's a lazy cat. Cat shaming.
No, she's just a cat.
She's a cat. This is exactly what they're supposed to do. Exactly. And so Rebel Wilson starts scratching her non-existent CGI'd out crotch and then gets up to sing. And Rebel Wilson cat then dances around the kitchen, revealing that she has taught mice how to sing on a stage. And she pulls back the curtain below the kitchen sink to unveil, if you can even handle this, if your mind doesn't explode into 1.2 million pieces, CGI'd kids as mice. And the proportions make even less sense. Imagine these kids mice that will haunt your dreams as they sing a chorus of woodly wah, woodly wah, woodly wah, woodly wah. And they have the shape of like a pear. They look like a pear with little tiny children's faces on the tip top of a pear that's so small that it literally like shakes a little bit because it was probably so hard to CGI frame by frame tiny little faces onto even smaller space. It doesn't make any sense.
That's
they have
crazy.
Little bow ties, and they look like tiny little freaks, like basically like little mice pairs. And Rebel Wilson then tap dances and scats and is like boo ba ba dee ba ba doo ba ba doo, scatting. Monkish Trap goes on about how lazy she is, where I'm like, she just taught those mice how to be a backup chorus. She's not that lazy. Yeah. So then Rebel Wilson, as a cat, grabs her tail from between her legs and begins to start singing and says that she created a Beatles tattoo, whatever that means. She climbs up on what is seemingly like a dining room table. The table is so big, and out comes a line of cockroaches marching. And like 1,000 of them, an army of female cockroaches that are dressed almost like mini superheroes, as in like imagine the body of Iron Man. And you know, like with superheroes, when their bodies are like so form-fitted, but you can tell that it's iron. Imagine like George Clooney as Batman with like the nippled bodysuit where you're like, why is that hypersexual and why does that not make sense? It's like that, but they're cockroaches and they're overly muscular with extra arms, but still, because for some reason this movie is so perved out in a way, they still have like breast. It's like breasted cockroaches, women with female faces CGI'd on these cockroach Iron Man bodies with antenna. Like, why? And they're an army of them, and they're marching and dancing in unison. And Rebel Wilson like will randomly slam the table, causing a single cockroach to fall, and then she eats it. And they all just keep marching, even though it's like, wow, one of our own was just slaughtered by this cat.
What?
They just keep dancing. If you do anything today, go look up this scene on YouTube. It's unhinged.
Yeah. And do they all have the same face? Is it the same person?
Have the same face.
Ah.
And in
That's
like
creepy.
a CGI copy and paste, where as it goes further down, it just becomes like a yellow dot where they were like, it's too far. Don't even bother trying. It's like putting a face on a pin. I'm sure there are multiple cuts of this available on YouTube. It's maybe one of the more unhinged moments in the entire thing.
Mm.
And then even though she keeps eating various ones and like knocking them off the table or grabbing just one and eating them, they all just keep dancing. And Rebel Wilson cat at one point unzips her fur. It's like she has a little zipper under her chin and she unzips her own body, unveiling a new dance number outfit. It's almost like Buffalo Bill of Silence of the Lambs, where she's like made a carcass dress out of other cat bodies. What is happening?
God.
Who made these
This
decisions?
is dark.
It's so good.
Horror.
So she's wearing a series of cats sewn together or something like that, unzips them, has now like a tap number dance. And as the cockroaches get onto the table, they dance on a strawberry cake with like the strawberry slices acting as mini stages. And Victoria, the white cat, is not like horrified by this, but she's more like, it seems like you have this incredible life. Why would you want to give this all up? This beautiful jellicle life. And her reaction is, I can't keep being in this kitchen, and then eats another cockroach. They're all dancing together. It's unhinged. And watching out of the corner of the entire living room kitchen area is Rum Tum Tugger, a.k.a. Jason Derulo. Jason Derulo cat.
What are these names?
You know what? Honestly, cannot put together. I mean, obviously, this is your internal cat name, I guess, emerging, Rum Tum Tugger. Or is it the human cat name? I don't understand. He, of course, is like, the whole thing is old school and whack. And he's like, you know, I think the cockroaches dancing is whack and the mice, they're kind of cool, but he's totally judging her performance. Meanwhile, he's eating the leg of an unknown animal. He has this giant bone. It almost looks like, are you eating another cat's leg? It has like a giant haunch and like maybe a hoof. Like, is that a goat's leg? Like, what are you eating? He's eating that. And the meat itself, at one point I paused it to try and figure out, is that a rabbit leg? What is that? It almost, if you've seen the substance, the meat on it looks like Monstro Eliza Sue. I don't know what animal it is, but he dives onto the table. He also is wearing a giant oversized fur coat with a fishbone Netflix. And then he sings a song about being Rum Tum Tigger, about being a really curious cat. And he's obviously the type of cat that's like cool as hell in the neighborhood. And you know what else? He bangs everybody and impregnates thousands of cats a year. Is basically the energy he's giving. Like town slut banging everybody. Out of control. And, you know, Rebel Wilson cat, though, suggests that maybe he's neutered because he sings so high. It's like, which one is it? Does he bang every cat or is he neutered? Get your jokes in line. And at this point, we get randomly like a really good look at the paws. And this is where I was like, oh my God, it's not even paws. It's bare feet, CGI'd fur through the ankle, and then like full on bare feet running all over set. And as they dance on this bar top, they're drinking milk out of dishes. But it's seemingly almost like they couldn't get away with making it like strip club-esque or anything for Rum Tum Tigger, or Rum Tum Tugger, who bangs everybody. So it's very like gross. Milk is sprayed everywhere. I'm like, what? Ugh. Female cats are licking up the milk in the tray. Like, Tom Hooper, gross. The female cats are all super into him. Even Victoria is a really like sort of swept up, like, wow, this powerful cat. Meanwhile, Magic Cat, who's clearly in love with her, is like in the shadows, like, but what about me? And then we see Grisabella, aka Jennifer Hudson Cat. She too is in an oversized fur coat, but some sort of like bedazzled number underneath, like old school, maybe was a lounge singer cat. And you can tell that she's like definitely seen some crap. You know what I mean? She's lived a life, and she sings how the other cats have ostracized her because she most likely, seemingly, was, I think, a prostitute cat. Sounding like a prostitute cat. She was once beautiful and shiny, and now she's mangy, and she got swept up with Idris Elba cat, and maybe I'm thinking with the fedora, he was a pimp cat. It's never quite said. And all of the female cats are again like, because, you know, classic women cats hating women cats, not uplifting in any way. And Jennifer Hudson Cat is constantly crying, and she constantly has snot coming out of her nose, and she's being hissed at, and she ends up leaving and literally crawling away. And we learn that McCavity, Idris Elba Cat, had been kind of famous, and he had brought her up, and she was like, yeah, a famous cat in the area. She was a star, but now she lives in the wasteland and she's been ostracized. And we all feel for her. As she crawls away, we see a shadow that resembles Danny DeVito's penguin in Batman Returns. And Rebel Wilson Cat literally says, "Oh no, look what the cat dragged in." And we see James Corden Cat as Bustopher Jones, who's in the shape of like the Disney country bears in a black tie with a top hat. And he sings about being a really fat cat, that he loves eating garbage, even though he's in his fancy black tie. He literally eats garbage, and he has an insatiable thirst for garbage. And as he's singing and leading everyone down the street to head to the junkyard to feast on some garbage cans, Idris Elba Cat steals Rebel Wilson away. He snatches her up like a Dementor in Harry Potter. It's like snap, and she's like pulled up into thin air with like glitter leaving behind. James Corden Cat is singing away. At one point, he rips his cat suit off, and it's like, is he naked now? Like, do they need clothes or not? He still has a bow tie on. Was he making way to eat more garbage? He just is like eating food off the street, but he also has leather, like patent leather shoes on, shiny, kind of fancy shoes, which remain on for unknown reason. Was he worried about wiki feet? We have no idea. He stands on the end of a seesaw, waiting for the other cats to jump on it and launch him into the air into an oversized garbage can. And after he like hisses and he like, he paws at himself, he's launched onto the trash can and he lands on it with legs folded over the top of it, i.e., he smashes his cat dick. And he basically is like, "Meow!" I'm like, his CGI'd cat D that's not there? What's happening? He ends up falling inside the garbage can where Jason Derulo Cat is hanging out, i.e., like it's a speakeasy / garbage can. And they
all fit in it.
And they all fit in it. It doesn't make any sense. They dump CGI'd liquid down his throat because it's like a speakeasy. Like, unclear. Then they knock over the giant garbage can / speakeasy, and they start ripping through the garbage. And all the cats are going insane while they're finding like chicken bones and like empty burger bags and all sorts of stuff. But then Idris Elba Cat is spotted watching from afar, and they all run off. They all take off running. But of course, James Corden Cat is standing there with some giant haunch of meat. And he's like, "Look at you, puss in spats," which I guess is what his patent leather shoes with like the white cuff are called. And he, again, takes his soul just like Rebel Wilson Cat. Victoria the White Cat, as all of the cats run off, runs into these mischievous twin cats, two people that don't even have Wikipedia pages, so like dancer, singer backgrounds. Rumple Teaser and Mungo Jerry. And they like to be mischievous, and they like to trash their home when their humans are gone. They like to knock things over. They like to tear up the pillows and get the feathers all over. They like to jump on the bed and mess up the blankets. And they grab all of this human-sized jewelry, except the jewelry looks like the size of small cars. At one point, they grab a giant pearl necklace off of a table, and the pearls are the size of basketballs. Why? They would be in proportion to the cats. Why did that happen? So Victoria, having fun with them, is jumping on the bed. They're doing somersaults. They're ballet dancing on the bed. And she puts on and wraps these giant basketball pearls around her. She puts an earring on as a bracelet because it's, quote, so big. And they're running around, and they almost knock over a giant vase, and they're like messing around. And as they're jumping on the bed, the giant vase that's been just teetering falls to the ground, smashing. And we all of a sudden start hearing a dog, row, 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 from another room, going crazy. And they run and scatter. But Victoria, if you remember, is wearing this necklace with oversized basketballs as pearls. It gets caught on the banister of the bed, and she literally can't move. And she's like, Luckily, Magic Cat comes and saves the day with a loose garbage bone to distract the dogs that are clamoring to get inside. And they run off. And you can see that Victoria and Mr. Mistopheles, the Magic Cat, it was a real breakthrough moment in their relationship. They're clearly falling in love. She's like, you're stalking me and following me around, but you also saved me. So that seems really meaningful. And they have shades of butterfly kisses is the best way I can describe it. Cats kind of putting their faces together, but they run off to safety. Meanwhile, James Corden Cat and Rebel Wilson Cat are being held captive on a barge out on a river. And Idris Elba Cat is capturing all of the cats that are going to compete at the Jellicle Ball so that ultimately there's no one to actually compete, and he's the only cat left to win.
What?
And by winning, we mean suicide to end up in a new life.
Yeah.
And we meet Growl Tiger, his like henchman cat, who's in charge of the barge and holding everyone hostage while he goes to collect more cats. And he literally is like, meow, and like disappears into the night. Meanwhile, Magic Cat and Victoria Cat have arrived back on the street, and Munkastrap is like, where have you been? Old Deuteronomy is here. She's going to be arriving. Get over here. And even though they've said 100 times the old-ass cat gets to pick who goes up to their, quote, heaven, she goes, who's that? Victoria, pay attention. Who do you think it is? It's the old-ass cat. He then sings to her about how this particular cat has lived so many lives. And he sings about how important she is while, like, petting the other cats, creep. And she sings how powerful she is and how she's the only one that can make this decision. And then appears Dame Judi Dench Cat as old Deuteronomy, who shuffles forward with, of course, a giant fur coat. And in the level of cats wearing fur coats, they get dramatically larger. Like Jennifer Hudson's was pretty big, but like normal sized. Idris Elba, at one point, he just lost completely. Old Deuteronomy, it looks like she is wearing 14 fur coats. Like that. It's like when Joey puts on all of Chandler's clothes in Friends. It's like so thick and giant. The biggest fur coat you've ever seen. And the neck of the fur coat is that of a lion. So it's like full fur, giant coat, weighs 70 pounds, and you can tell powerful. And all of the cats bow to her. And she walks through the crowd as all the cats are like leaning in, and she's touching their faces, and they're showing real reverence. And then she sings again about the Jellicle Ball. Who will it be? Who will it be? Who will it be? They sing. And then they sing about being cats and how great it is. And then they make their way into the ballroom. As they say, Jellicle cats are white and black. Jellicle cats have moderate size. Jellicle jump like a jumping jack. Jellicle cats have moonlit eyes. And they sing and they sing and they sing. And they're all inside and they're being bathed by the moonlight. And they're all there in their cat positions. And we've got, you know, the CGI'd version of these cats. And they're all on fours and we get full human butts. It's just cheek everywhere. And they all dance. And they're all jumping around and light hissing. And they're moving in the moonlight. But they're also dancing like their life depends on it because old-ass Deuteronomy, Dame Judi Dench Cat, is watching. And she's honing in on all of their energy. And you know who's a great dancer? Victoria the White Cat. She's beautifully dancing like no magical cat has danced before. Just perfect ballet. And then all of a sudden, upbeat music kicks in and Jason Derulo Cat kicks it up a notch with modern cat dancing. And even Dame Judi Dench Cat is like, fun, and like giving fingers like, woo, cat dancing. Meanwhile, Jennifer Hudson cat / former prostitute cat has been like watching in the shadows and wants to come forward, but is too scared. And then as she kind of is like, maybe I should, and sing. And then, of course, there's a bunch of female cats. Female cats hating female cats. And they harass her with hisses. And no one is noticing because cats with the shoes on are breakdancing now. And Dame Judi Dench is like swept up in the breakdancing. And then the moonlight hits the center of the stage. And Victoria dances again because, like Coyote Ugly, you can't fight the moonlight. And she takes off in the most riveting, beautiful dance you've ever seen. And she's pulled by the energy of the room. And she's watching the cats lift Victoria the cat. And they're all dancing and they're overcome with emotion and they're dancing wildly. And Victoria's overcome with some sort of emotion because she's not a cat hating other female cats. She's an empath. And she's like, something isn't right. Because even though obviously I am the hottest cat here and I'm the most beautiful dancer and somehow all the cats are worshiping me, what about Jennifer Hudson, who's like borderline goddamn EGOT? Like, what is going on there? Or maybe I think she is an EGOT at this point. Could be EGOT. She's like, this is insane. In Old Deuteronomy, Dame Judi Dench cat is like staring into the moonlight. And Victoria runs through a set of doors. And outside is shunned Jennifer Hudson cat. And she's slumped on the street, leaning on the streetlight, and she starts to sing moments from the key song of Memory. And Victoria is so moved by that. And of course, the streetlight is the size of a minivan. And she has tears in her eyes. And she has snot everywhere, of course. And Victoria the cat is like, this is so beautiful. And she's so moved by the performance. And she approaches her with her human, non-cat hand to comfort her. But Jennifer Hudson pulls away. And then Victoria sings to her. And she says, I should take chances when no one took chances on me. She just wanted to be wanted. And clearly Jennifer Hudson cat is a special cat. And Dame Judi Dench cat is watching this from afar and is like, wow, look at that cat. Female cats helping female cats. And Dame Judi Dench cat is like, who are you, young hot cat? I've never seen you before. And she's like, I'm from Victoria. I'm not around from here. I was abandoned. And she says, well, would you like to see me make the jellicle choice? She's like, am I allowed? She's like, of course. Why wouldn't you be allowed? She's like, I'm not a jellicle. She goes, not yet, perhaps, but hurry. It's about to begin. And it's like, so she's not a jellicle cat? What's happening? Inside, the magic cat catches Gus the cat, a.k.a. Sir Ian McKellen.
Ooh,
and is like, the cast is unreal. And Magic Cat is like, I can't wait to see you perform. I'm such a big fan. And Dame Judi Dench is like, okay, Sir Ian McKellen, you're up first. Perform for me. And she's just laying in a giant basket the size of a queen-size bed, surrounded by blankets that mimic her fur, maybe just slaughtered cats, who knows. And he's a famous old-school theater cat, and he goes through his entire career. And the cats just explode into meows at the end. Meow, meow, meow. Dame Judi Dench literally kicks her leg up into the air like, perfect performance. Bravo, bravo. We hear Idris Elba cat, who steals Sir Ian McKellen cat away. And then Dame Judi Dench cat calls upon Skimbleshanks, the railway cat, LOL, another ballet actor type, who's dressed like a sexualized Mario. He's shirtless with red overall pants. He's got boots. The overall pants are so high-waisted, very Ryan Reynolds coded. And he begins this elaborate tap number mimicking a train, and everyone joins in on the fun. And he leads them out of the ball onto actual train tracks. They're dancing, they're singing, they're tapping forever, what feels like 10 minutes. And on his way back to the ball, he begins to spin. He's like spinning and spinning, and he's spinning so much that he starts taking off into the air like a tornado. And as he's launching into the air, he disappears. And we hear Idris Elba Cat laughing in the distance. Ha, 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 meow. And Dame Judi Dench Cat is shocked. What's happening? And they're all like, Idris Elba Cat, Idris Elba Cat. All of a sudden, this giant, oversized crescent moon is lowered from a pretty much non-existent ceiling, because if you remember, it's been torn open and there's moonlight coming through. And yet, on this crescent moon, magical Taylor Swift cat holding a glittered cup of, quote, catnip, and she sprinkles the catnip over all of the cats while she sings about how Idris Elba Cat is mysterious and powerful. And as she's dropping this catnip, she's drugging all of the cats. And they're all kind of like getting like woozy, and she's down doing an elaborate dance number, and she's wearing kitten heels. Because she was like, I will not allow my feet on Wiki Feet. You better believe I will be wearing dance shoes. I don't think so. So
Fair
she's
enough.
dancing. Exactly. I'm like, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
The power of a contract. So with this like glowing light, magical Taylor Swift cat, she's now dancing alongside Idris Elba, who has removed his oversized pimp coat and beautiful fedora. And his fur is so shiny, he almost looks like a puma. She's like 5'10", even with her kitten heels, maybe 5'11". I mean, they're very petite heels. He's 6'2" in real life, and yet they are eye to eye. The power of being an A-list star, being eye to eye with Idris Elba. And for some reason, maybe it's because he's so hot, he's so like beautiful. It's like the one time where you're like, wow, yeah, I get what you were trying to kind of do, because like Idris Elba somehow still looks like hot, even in cat form, but no one else really comes off that way. And he grabs Dame Judi Dench Cat and pulls her up from the drugged up cats and forces her to declare the winner. He's like, who is the winner of the Jellicle Ball? As I, Idris Elba Cat, am the only contestant left. And she grabs his paw/hand and is like, never. I choose the cat that deserves a new life. I judge a cat by its soul. And you're a cheat, Idris Elba Cat. And he steals her in a flash. And she ends up on the barge with all of the other stolen cats. And he screams at her. He's like, I'm going to the Heaviside Layer, and I demand that you grant me another life. She's like, you will never go to the Heaviside Layer. He's like, we'll see about that. Make her walk the plank. And that weird growl tiger cat starts forcing beautiful Dame Judi Dench Cat to walk the plank, because he's like, you'll be a wet cat drowning in the river. And as she's making her way down the plank, she's like, you will never be my Jellicle choice. And he's like, this is your last chance. She turns back and she's like, never. Meanwhile, the cats back in the ball, who were high as hell during that whole time, couldn't help her at all, have now sobered up pretty quickly and are like, we've got to get Dame Judi Dench Cat back. And Victoria is like, guys, I'm brand new. I dance like an angel. I'm hot as hell. And my new boyfriend is the Magic Cat, a.k.a. Mr. Mistopheles, and he can perform magic. Babe, you're up. Do it. And he's like, no, I can't. It's too big. And they're like, you got it. And he's so scared, but he's like, okay, I'm going to try. And they like build him up. They're like, we love you. You're a magical cat. You have a beautiful jacket with pearl buttons. You're dating the hottest cat. Like, you got this. And he sings about all the various tricks that he can do, but they're all like sleight of hand and hat tricks. And he's just like, I don't know. And Munkustrop is like, just do it. And they gather around. And he's like, oh, nothing happens. oh, nothing happens. And then they all gather around him. And they give him all the strength. And he's like, gah! And they open their eyes. And she's not in the basket. And then all of a sudden she's like, meow. There's Dame Judi Dench Cat. She's there. He did it! And Magic Cat and Victoria dance together. And he's completely, that black cat with giant white human feet. And he sings about how awesome he is. And then he does this quick magic moment because now he's like, I'm powerful as hell. And so he lifts himself from the floor of the ball onto the stage. And he's next to beautiful Dame Judi Dench Cat, who's been up on the stage. And they lean in and they butterfly kiss with their whiskers. Meanwhile, I'm like, don't touch her. Ugh, she's a dame. You're like a weird magic cat. But everyone is shouting, aka meowing, meow, meow, meow. And Victoria sees Dame Judi Dench Cat walking towards the doorway. Meanwhile, on the barge, the cats like Sir Ian McKellen Cat and Sexy Mario Railway Cat and Rebel Wilson Cat and James Corden Cat easily take Growl Tiger down and escape. And in the street, Victoria the cat sings to Jennifer Hudson Cat. She sees her still outside. And she goes up to her and she touches her and leads her back to the ball. And she brings Jennifer Hudson inside. She's like, you are not ostracized. I, a hot cat, am bestowing the power of allowing you into the cat community, even though I've literally only been here for checks time an hour. And they all watch her walk inside. And yet, even with the power of hotness, some of the cats are still like, but she goes in and she presents her to old Deuteronomy, Dame Judi Dench Cat. And then Jennifer Hudson Cat really lays in with the song Memory, the big hit from Cats. And of course, we know this prostitute cat can sing. And she blows everyone away. The cats are crying. Does she have tears? Of course she does. Is there snot all down her cat face? You better believe it. Every cat is crying, but Victoria Cat is sobbing. And Dame Judi Dench Cat approaches Jennifer Hudson Cat, and she nuzzles her with butterfly kisses. And then they hug Victoria, and they butterfly kiss her. And then all the cats are like, wow, I guess we shouldn't hiss at her. She's one of us now. And of course, they choose Jennifer Hudson Cat. She will be going to heaven. And they literally put her inside a fallen chandelier that acts like a hot air balloon. And she begins to float up into the sky. And then Idris Elba Cat grabs on to a loose rope and tries to go with her. But he falls to the ground, assuming he dies in that moment. I mean, he literally falls from the sky. Jennifer Hudson Cat continues to climb while all the cats are meow, meow, embracing and hugging and butterfly kissing. And as they watch, she's going higher and higher and higher into the clouds. And Dame Judi Dench Cat sings about how great cats are and how awesome it is that they're not dogs. So this is this and that is that, and that's how you address a cat. A cat's entitled to expect those evidences of respect. So this is this and that is that, and that's how you address a cat. And then the cats scatter, but not before Dame Judi Dench tells Victoria Cat that she is a jellicle cat. She says, you are truly a jellicle cat, a dear little cat, as in dear little, as in jellicle, as in what? Question mark? I still don't get it. She then rests her head on old Deuteronomy, Dame Judi Dench Cat, and they watch as Jennifer Hudson continues to float higher and higher and higher, vanishing into the clouds and seemingly explodes and then becomes a new cat? Unclear. The end.
There was really something.
It is a movie that is an hour and 40 minutes. By the way, all online, because I kept being like, what's the runtime of this? It's like different times. It was like no one was paying attention. It's like, is it 2 hours? Is it an hour 50? It's about an hour 40. It is wild and trippy. Every decision, a wrong decision in the best way possible. People are still feeling it. At one point, we did do an interview with Jennifer Hudson, and I was like, hey, remember Cats? And literally her PR team was like, you have to take that out. Like, they are so sensy. And I was like, not even trying to be mean. I'm like, Jennifer Hudson like has a incredible voice. And apparently she has a cat named Grisabella from The Experience. She was like, I loved it. And, you know,
yeah, it sounds like it was a lot of fun.
I think so.
Like,
and I actually appreciate that they really had like true ballet dancers and singers and things like that, because a lot of times they're recast. I mean, of course, there's the James Cordens and the Rebel Wilsons, but like, you know, true UK dancers and things. And I liked that.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a lot of fun. I actually am inspired to go watch it now.
Yes, it is so bonkers. Think about those buttholes in every take. Every time a butt is like flash across the screen, you're like, butthole? I mean, it really is a mark.
The whole butthole thing seems like one of those, there's like a name for it, Barbara Streisand effect, where it just like someone brought it up and then that's why it's a big thing.
Yes.
Like maybe it wouldn't have been, but
like it's so locked in and I live for it. I truly live for it. So guys, Cats, happy 5th anniversary, a movie that still sticks with us day after day. I've had a very special guest, our first guest from New Zealand, Elizabeth Rosa. Go check out her art online. We celebrated the 5th anniversary of Cats. You can always email me, allspoilerrecap@gmail.com. Go like, subscribe, leave a review. Love to hear from you. And again, I'll talk to you on Monday. New episodes every Monday. See you then.